everyone! It's so good to have you back with us. George, you look unusually awake for this early recording. Did you switch to a stronger kind of coffee or something?
Not stronger, just bigger. I realized if I buy a mug the size of a small bucket, I only need 1 cup in the morning. Efficiency.
A bucket of coffee. That explains the sparkle in your eyes today?
And here I thought it was because I'm happy to see you.
Oh, well, maybe 90% coffee, 10% me.
Fair enough.
So, today we're diving into a topic that so many of you keep asking about: how to practice English every single day and actually start speaking confidently, fast. We've talked around this topic before, but today we're going deeper, more practical, more real.
And simpler, because honestly, learning a language is complicated only if you try to do everything at once. But daily practice, that can be gentle, tiny, quiet.
Yes, like a cozy morning routine, or like your bucket of coffee.
Please don't make that a routine for anyone but me.
Deal. But before we dive fully in, if you enjoy natural English conversations like this, don't forget to subscribe. It really helps us keep creating these warm little episodes for you.
And it helps support my coffee-related lifestyle choices.
Extremely important. All right, let's go.
Let's go.
So, George, let's start from the beginning. When someone says, I want to speak English confidently and fast, what's the very first thing you want to tell them?
I usually say something that surprises them. Forget about speaking for now. And then they look at me like I've said something terrible. But what I mean is, before you speak confidently, you need to reduce the fear. Confidence isn't built by jumping into the deep end. It's built by creating small, safe, daily habits.
Yes, people imagine confidence as this thing that suddenly appears one day, like a miracle. But actually, it grows quietly inside you through daily contact with the language, even tiny contact.
Exactly. And most people don't realize that confidence doesn't come from vocabulary or grammar. It comes from familiarity.
When something feels familiar, it becomes less scary.
Right. And that's why the first rule for daily English is this simple. Make it small enough to repeat.
Ooh, I love that. Because people try to do 1 hour sessions every day, and then after 3 days, they crash. Not because they're lazy, but because the habit is too heavy.
It's like lifting a heavy weight at the gym every single day. You just can't. But lift something small every day, that creates real strength over time.
And that strength becomes confidence.
Exactly.
So let's talk about practical ways to make English part of everyday life. And a big part of that is speaking, or at least producing language actively. But what do you tell people who don't have anyone to talk to?
I tell them the truth. You already have someone to talk to. Yourself.
Yes, the talking to yourself method. It's such a powerful tool.
And it's not as strange as people think. We all talk to ourselves anyway, just usually in our native language. So the trick is to shift some of that inner talk into English.
Narrate your day. Narrate your thoughts. Narrate your tiny frustrations. Like, I really should have washed my hair yesterday. Or, why is my cat staring at me like that?
Exactly. And the beauty is that you don't need perfect sentences. In fact, trying to make them perfect will destroy the habit. The goal is get the words out. Let them be messy.
And this daily inner voice practice creates something amazing: low pressure fluency.
Yes, it builds fluency in the shadows, almost invisibly. And another thing learners can do is recording themselves, just 30 seconds.
People are so scared of recording themselves, though.
True. But once they do it, once they hear their voice in English, something changes. It becomes real. They start noticing little improvements, and improvement creates motivation.
And you don't need a topic. Just talk about what's right in front of you. Like, I'm sitting at my desk. There's a cup of tea. My plant looks like it needs water. Simple, human, real.
And even if the sentences are basic, the practice is powerful. Because daily speaking, even simple speaking, is the path to confident speaking later.
We should talk about listening too, because it's such a big part of speaking.
Definitely. A lot of learners think listening is passive, but it's incredibly active. The brain is always learning patterns, rhythm, intonation.
And you only need 2 minutes a day to grow that skill. People think they need an hour. They don't. 2 minutes counts. It keeps your brain connected to the language.
The key phrase here is keep your ears in the language. Even a small daily dose creates long-term familiarity.
And familiarity reduces fear.
Exactly. And with listening comes another great technique learners often forget: shadowing.
Oh, yes. Shadowing is amazing and also very funny sometimes.
Because you repeat the sentence right after hearing it, even if you're not ready. The messiness is the magic.
Exactly. It trains your mouth and your ear at the same time. You don't need to understand every word. You're just trying to copy the rhythm. That rhythm is what makes speech sound natural. And when people focus less on correctness and more on rhythm, they suddenly sound more fluent.
Yes, because fluency is flow, not perfection.
That should be printed on a mug.
Preferably a bucket-sized one.
Of course. Let's talk about fear for a second. Because even with daily practice, many learners feel anxious.
Fear is completely normal. In fact, it means your goal matters to you. But one thing people need to understand is this: mistakes aren't a problem. They're part of the process.
Absolutely. Mistakes don't take you further from fluency. They take you closer because they correct your path.
And more importantly, people are far more forgiving than you think.
Yes, nobody's judging your grammar. They care about your message, your intention, your energy.
I once mixed up two words and accidentally told someone I was mysteriously unemployed. I meant self-employed.
Oh, no.
Yes, but the person just laughed kindly, and we ended up becoming friends. Mistakes can create connection.
And stories. Some of the funniest memories people have are their language mistakes.
Exactly.
And this is why speaking early, even imperfectly, matters so much. Because confidence isn't the beginning, confidence is the result.
Exactly. You earn it through action,
Through showing up every day.
through tiny steps, not big ones.
All right, let's get even more practical. Let's give listeners some simple daily habits they can start today.
Great idea. And the first one is my favorite: 30-second English. Just speak for 30 seconds about anything: your breakfast, your plans, your keys you can never find.
Number 2, micro-listening. 2 minutes a day. A podcast clip, a short video, a piece of a song.
Number 3, change one app on your phone to English. Just one. Don't overwhelm yourself.
Number 4, create daily triggers. For example, every time you wash your hands, say one sentence in English.
Or every time you open your fridge.
Yes, I'm not hungry, but here I am again.
Exactly.
Number 5, shadowing. Repeat a line from something you listen to, even if you feel silly.
Number 6, follow one English creator. Just one.
Number 7, learn expressions, not individual words. Phrases like, to be honest, kinda, fair enough, or at the end of the day. They're the backbone of natural speaking.
Number 8, celebrate small wins. You understood a joke? Amazing. You said a sentence without translating? Fantastic.
Number 9, don't wait for inspiration. Inspiration is unreliable. Routine is dependable.
Exactly. You don't need motivation every day. You just need presence.
And when you show up, even for 2 minutes, fluency becomes inevitable.
I love that word.
Me too.
You know, Anastasia, something I've noticed is that daily English isn't just about building language. It's about building identity, too. When learners start using English every day, even in tiny moments, they begin to feel like someone who can speak English.
Yes, that identity shift is huge. It's like a quiet confidence that grows inside. You don't wake up one day magically fluent, but you do wake up one day and think, wait, this language doesn't scare me anymore.
Exactly. And that moment is gold. It's the moment when learning becomes living.
And speaking becomes natural, not forced.
Right. And that's why I think people shouldn't focus on speed. They should focus on consistency, because speed is a byproduct of consistency.
Yes, yes, yes. Fluency is slow magic. It feels slow in the moment, but when you look back, you realize how much you've grown.
And the amazing part, growth happens even when you don't notice it, especially when the practice is light and daily.
Speaking of light practice, can we talk about something that people usually ignore? Emotional connection. When you enjoy the language, when it touches your life emotionally, learning becomes easier.
Absolutely. When you laugh, when you smile, when you feel something, the language sticks. Emotion attaches meaning.
Yes. Think about the songs you loved when you were younger. You still remember the lyrics, not because you studied them, because they made you feel something.
Exactly. And this is why learners who watch shows they genuinely enjoy progress faster. Because they aren't just processing language, they're experiencing it.
I always tell listeners, find one English thing that makes you feel something. A podcast, a YouTuber, a book, a TikTok creator, anything that gives you a spark.
And the spark fuels the habit. The habit builds the skill. The skill creates confidence.
That's beautiful.
It's the coffee poetry talking.
Coffee poet, that's your new title.
I accept it with honor.
Okay, let's explore something deeper. What about the people who say, I really want to practice every day, but I just don't have time?
Ah, yes, the famous no time. I understand it, we're all busy, but the truth is, everyone has 2 minutes.
Yes, everyone has little pockets of time, waiting for the kettle to boil, waiting at a red light, brushing your teeth, putting on shoes.
Exactly. Daily English doesn't require extra time. It requires using existing time differently.
For example, instead of scrolling for 20 minutes, scroll in English for 2 minutes.
Instead of daydreaming, daydream in English.
Instead of thinking about what to cook, think about it in English.
Instead of singing in the shower, actually no, keep singing in your language unless your English songs are ready.
Haha, yes. Or else the neighbors will learn every mistake you make.
But honestly, daily English fits into daily life like seasoning on food. You sprinkle it everywhere.
Yes. And when you sprinkle it, the flavor of your day changes.
And eventually, the flavor becomes familiar.
And familiarity, again, creates confidence.
Everything leads back to confidence.
Let's talk about another common problem. I understand English, but I can't speak.
Ah, the classic. And the truth is simple. Understanding comes first because it's passive. Speaking comes later because it's active.
Yes, understanding is like watching someone cook. Speaking is like cooking yourself. Messy, chaotic, sometimes you burn things.
Yes. And sometimes the kitchen is full of smoke.
But that's how you learn. You can't master something you never try.
Exactly. And here's the funny part. Speaking isn't actually the problem. It's fear of speaking,
The fear usually comes from comparing your spoken English to your native language.
which is unfair. It's like comparing a seed to a tree.
Yes, English is still a baby tree for most learners.
And babies don't walk perfectly. They wobble and fall and bump into things. Nobody judges them.
We should treat ourselves with that same kindness.
Yes, learners need to remember your English is not who you are. It's a tool you're still learning to use.
And tools get easier the more you use them.
And smoother
And more comfortable.
until one day you're using the tool without even thinking about it.
That's fluency.
There's another thing we rarely talk about, but it's important. Physical speaking skills. The mouth, tongue, jaw, they also need practice.
Yes, people forget that speaking is physical. It's not just mental.
And English uses different muscles compared to many languages. So at first, your mouth literally feels tired.
I've had students tell me, my tongue is confused.
Yes, that means you're training new muscles. And that's why shadowing is so useful. It's like going to the gym for your mouth.
And the more you repeat real English sounds, the more natural they become.
And the more natural they become, the more confident you feel.
It's all connected. Let's touch on something emotional again, the shame many learners feel.
Oh, yes. Shame is one of the biggest enemies of fluency.
Shame says, you sound stupid.
Confidence says, you're learning. Keep going.
Shame says, everyone is judging you.
Reality says, people are focused on themselves.
Yes. And honestly, people love hearing accents. They often find them charming, interesting, beautiful.
Accents are stories. They tell where you come from, what languages you speak, what traditions you carry.
Exactly. They're not mistakes. They're history.
And you should be proud of your history.
And your English can grow while your identity stays whole.
That's the best part.
Let's give listeners more daily techniques, more practical ideas.
Sure. Here's one. Describe one photo a day. Any photo. Your room, your pet, your breakfast. Just describe what you see.
That's a great one. Another idea? Ask yourself one small question in English each day. Something like, what was the highlight of my day? Or what do I hope tomorrow feels like?
Or what small moment made me smile today?
Yes, these reflective questions help your English grow with your emotions.
Another habit, create micro stories. Very small ones. Like, this morning I almost missed my bus because my scarf got stuck on the door.
Very realistic.
Happens more often than it should.
And these tiny stories build narrative skills, which are essential for conversation.
Absolutely. When learners can tell stories, even simple ones, they become more confident in real interactions.
And stories make conversations interesting.
And human.
Let's talk about another powerful idea, your English persona.
Ah, yes. Every language creates a different version of you.
Some people feel more confident in English than in their native language. Some feel more playful. Some feel more shy.
And that's okay. Your English self doesn't have to be identical to your native language self.
In fact, exploring your English persona can be fun, like trying on a new outfit.
Yes, you get to choose how you sound, how you express humor, how you show emotions.
And when people stop forcing themselves to be perfect and just allow themselves to be natural, English becomes so much easier.
That's when the real progress starts.
I want to dive deeper into the idea of low pressure practice because I feel like it's life changing.
It is. High pressure practice creates burnout. Low pressure practice creates fluency.
Yes, practice that feels light, kind, playful, that's sustainable.
And sustainability is the foundation of confidence.
Exactly. If you make English part of the small moments in your day, it becomes part of your life.
And when something becomes part of your life, you don't quit it.
And you don't fear it.
And you don't judge yourself for being imperfect.
You simply grow.
Quietly.
Naturally.
Like sunrise.
George, I wish learners could see themselves the way we see them,
How's that?
as people who are brave. Because learning a language and practicing it every day requires courage.
Yes, quiet courage, but powerful courage.
And I wish learners understood that every time they choose English, even for 1 minute, they're doing something brave,
Something rare.
something transformative.
Something that will stay with them forever.
Yes, that.
And with that, I think we've reached the heart of today's message.
We have, but we still have more to share.
Yes, we still have more, because we haven't talked about one of the most powerful things learners can do, building emotional rituals around English.
Emotional rituals. Ooh, that sounds magical already. Tell me more.
Well, every habit becomes stronger when it's connected to emotion. So if you make English part of something that already feels good, like your morning tea or your evening walk or the 10 minutes before sleep, the practice becomes automatic.
Yes, I love that idea. Like pairing English with comfort. Maybe someone puts on a soft lamp in the evening, sits comfortably, and listens to 2 minutes of English, and that becomes their little ritual.
Exactly. And because the ritual feels relaxing, the language becomes relaxing too.
Yes, and that's the complete opposite of the stressful study mode many people grew up with in school.
Right. School made language feel like a test. But daily life can make language feel like a companion.
A companion you gradually trust more and more,
And eventually rely on.
and maybe even love.
That's the ideal. When you love the language, not just learn it.
And love grows through small, positive experiences.
And those experiences create emotional memory.
Emotional memory is such a powerful thing. When you attach a warm feeling to English, the brain relaxes, it opens, it learns faster.
Yes, it stops defending itself. It stops overthinking. It stops panicking.
And in that calm space, speaking becomes easier.
Much easier.
You know what else learners need? Variety. Not big variety, just small changes to keep things interesting.
Yes, otherwise practice becomes boring, and boring habits die quickly.
For example, one day you might shadow a sentence. Another day you might describe your breakfast. Another day you might listen to a short clip. Another day you might write a tiny journal line.
Exactly. Daily practice doesn't have to be identical. It just has to exist.
Yes, the brain loves surprise, even tiny surprise.
And here's something else. Switching between speaking, listening, reading, and writing creates balanced progress.
Like working different muscles.
Exactly. If you only run, you build some muscles. If you lift weights, you build others. But if you do both, you become balanced.
Same with English. Shadowing trains the mouth. Listening trains the ear. Reading trains vocabulary. Writing trains structure.
And speaking ties everything together.
I love that.
Something we haven't touched yet is environment. Learners need an English-friendly environment.
Yes, we're not talking about moving to another country. We're talking about tiny environmental signals.
Like putting your phone language to English.
Or putting a sticky note on your mirror with a phrase you want to practice.
Or leaving an English playlist open so you can play something with one click.
Or having one English book on your table, even if you read only one paragraph a day.
These small environmental reminders keep you connected.
And they silently tell your brain, English matters to me.
And when something matters, you practice it.
I want to talk about perfectionism because it kills daily habits so quickly.
Yes, perfectionism is like a strict teacher living inside your head. And that teacher never smiles.
Yes, that's exactly the feeling. The teacher in your mind says, if you can't speak perfectly, don't speak.
If you can't practice for an hour, don't practice.
If you can't say everything without mistakes, stay silent.
And that thinking destroys progress.
Because perfectionism demands big steps, and big steps are scary, and scary steps get avoided.
But small steps? Anyone can do small steps.
Yes, and small steps grow into big progress.
And here's the truth. Fluent speakers make mistakes too. Even native speakers.
Oh, absolutely. I make mistakes all the time when I speak English. I forget words, I mix up expressions, I say silly things.
I've heard them. They're adorable.
See?
And nobody thinks, wow, she's terrible at English. They think, oh, she's human.
Exactly. And that's how learners should think about themselves too.
Let's talk about speaking partners because many learners feel lonely.
Yes, they feel like they're practicing in a bubble.
But the truth is, even if you don't have a speaking partner, you can still create connection through English.
Through podcasts, through videos, through comments online, through journaling.
Yes, and there's also a great trick. Message yourself in English. Seriously. Open your Notes app and write a short message to yourself.
A tiny message like, today I felt tired but proud, or I really want chocolate right now.
Or, why does my cat look at me like I'm suspicious?
Yes, these messages build expressive ability, and expressive ability is essential for conversation.
And when you finally do find a speaking partner, you already have the skills.
Exactly. You've rehearsed with yourself. I also want to talk about goals because goals can help or destroy progress.
Yes, if your goals are huge, you'll burn out. If they're tiny, you'll grow.
People often set goals like, I want to speak fluently in 3 months.
Which is like saying, I want to run a marathon next week.
Instead, set gentle goals like, I want to do 2 minutes today, or I want to say one sentence, or I want to listen to one thing.
And here's the amazing part. Tiny goals create big results.
Because tiny goals are achievable. Achievable goals create consistency. Consistency creates fluency.
Fluency creates confidence.
Everything connects. There's another thing I want to highlight: self-kindness. Yes, kindness. Learners forget to be kind to themselves.
They think mistakes mean failure. They think slow progress means weakness. They think difficulty means they're not good enough.
When really, all of it means they're learning.
Learning is messy.
Learning is emotional,
Learning is imperfect.
and that's normal, beautiful even.
Exactly.
You know, George, at the heart of all this, daily English is really about building a relationship with yourself.
Yes, it's not just learning words, it's learning patience,
Learning courage, too.
learning discipline,
Learning softness, too.
learning trust.
And learning to show up even on the days when you don't feel strong.
And that's what transforms someone, not just as a language learner, but as a human.
Yes, exactly.
Accents are stories. They tell where you come from, what languages you speak, what traditions you carry.
Exactly. They're not mistakes, they're history.
And you should be proud of your history.
And your English can grow while your identity stays whole.
That's the best part.
Let's give listeners more daily techniques, more practical ideas.
Sure. Here's one. Describe one photo a day. Any photo. Your room, your pet, your breakfast. Just describe what you see.
That's a great one. Another idea? Ask yourself one small question in English each day. Something like, what was the highlight of my day? Or what do I hope tomorrow feels like?
Or what small moment made me smile today?
Yes, these reflective questions help your English grow with your emotions.
Another habit, create micro stories. Very small ones. Like, this morning I almost missed my bus because my scarf got stuck on the door.
Very realistic.
Happens more often than it should.
And these tiny stories build narrative skills, which are essential for conversation.
Absolutely. When learners can tell stories, even simple ones, they become more confident in real interactions.
And stories make conversations interesting.
And human.
All right, let's bring everything together for our listeners. If someone wants to speak English confidently and fast, what should they focus on?
Small daily habits.
Low pressure practice,
Emotional connection.
shadowing for rhythm,
Listening for patterns.
speaking for confidence,
Environment for reminders.
kindness for progress.
And celebrating small wins.
Yes, celebrating every step.
And now maybe we share a final reflection.
Yes, because daily English is not just about language. It's about building a future version of yourself, a version who can speak, connect, travel, dream, express.
A version who isn't afraid of making mistakes.
A version who feels confident, free, curious.
And that version is built slowly, not through big moments, but through small, daily ones.
Small habits create big futures.
In little steps, create long journeys.
So wherever you are, whatever level you're at, remember, every sentence you speak, every minute you listen, every tiny habit you repeat, it all matters. It all counts. And it all brings you closer to the version of yourself you dream of becoming.
What about you? Tell us in the comments. We'd love to hear your thoughts.
Before we say goodbye, let's revisit a few expressions we used today, naturally, of course. Things like keep your ears in the language, get the words out, part of the process, and copy the rhythm. These aren't just phrases, they're tools, tiny tools you can use every day.
And if this episode made you smile or made you feel understood, don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, and share it. It really helps our little studio grow.
That's all for today. Remember, stay kind, stay curious.
See you next time, friends.